All right. Joining us now is our good friend David Horowitz. He's got a new book out called Take No Prisoners, The Battle Plan for Defeating the Left. Hey, Davey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Dennis. I'm just observing you on Fox. I think you're the only person in the country that could give Billy a run for his money. It has to do with rapid delivery and superior humor.
Well, I appreciate
just getting
you.
a word in edgewise.
Appreciate you watching, but I get that from my stand-up and from Saturday Night Live. You don't leave gaps because bad things happen in gaps, I think. So when I'm on stage, I kind of keep moving, and when I was on SNL, I kept moving. I think it's just ingrained now. Although Raleigh and I, who've now been on the road for a couple of years, have each other's rhythms down now. I'm not fighting for that time anymore. He knows how to set me up, and likewise, I know how to set him up.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Take No Prisoners, the battle plan for defeating the left. Before you go, Dave, you have to know I'm further down the road than a lot of people. I think this all corrects historically, but I don't think it corrects soon, and I don't think it corrects by us wanting it to correct. I think we sort of dropped the ball. Now, go ahead. Your thoughts.
Okay, Republicans, everybody knows, don't know how to fight. Mm-hmm. Mike Tyson once said that everybody has a game plan until you punch them in the mouth.
Right. I love that quote.
Democrats have a big punch in the mouth for Republicans every election, every week, actually. And it's always the same one. Republicans are racist, they're women haters, they despise the poor, and they defend the rich. Mm-hmm. And what's the Republican answer? There is none. 20 years of this crap, and they have not developed any kind of response except, to shuffle and some of my best friends and whatever. What's their counterpunch? What's the Republican punch? There is none. They all talk in different directions, and they don't have any aggressive move. Mm-hmm. Initial move to throw Democrats off balance. But there's an obvious punch, and that is to throw the victims of all these Democratic policies in their faces. The Democrats are the racist party, the party of slavery, the party of segregation, the party of racial categories. The Civil Rights Act eliminated that in the 60s, and the Democrats promptly reintroduced it. So we have racial categories for job applications, for college admissions, for virtually everything, for slots on television shows. It's disgusting, and it's racist. But much worse than this, Democrats control every major city in America. Chicago, Detroit, 100% Democrat control, and it's been that way for 50 to 100 years. Mm-hmm. Democrats have destroyed the lives of millions upon millions of poor black and Hispanic children who they trap in public schools that are not teaching them because those schools are run for the teacher unions and the adults. They promote teachers for showing up. There's no connection between performance and reward. They'll fight to the death to oppose that. I mean, it's gotten so bad that even Antonio Villagrosa wrote an anti-union op-ed piece. But the fact remains that there's millions of kids who are in schools that will not teach them, and they can't get out. They can't get voucher programs. They don't have the freedom to go to private schools. Of course, all the Democratic legislators, they have that freedom, and they send their kids to private schools. Then look at the women question. Look at what the welfare state has done to poor single mothers. They set you up. They drive. If you have a man in the home, they drive him out. They set you up in a free apartment. You get free food. All the things that you need, you get free. And they give you $1,000, $1,500 a month. But then they tell you, for each kid you have, you can get another $200. So it's an incentive to create, 10 children who will be poor forever. It's evil what the Democrats have done, And Republicans are too damn polite to mention any of this. Now, if you take Obamacare, why are Republicans talking about freedom? What's wrong with Obamacare is the government, for the first time in American history, is telling you you have to take their health care. And like if you're 75 like I am, you got to have maternity care in the package, which is kind of it's expensive and stupid. So they're deciding what the package looks like. Now you get like 4 choices. Eventually, since it's the government, it'll be narrowed down, you can believe it, to 3 or 2 or 1 choice. And then if you've, played by the rules and made a little money, they're going to stick their hands in your pockets and, without your consent, subsidize, people who are lazy, who are criminals. There are the deserving poor, but they're swamped by the undeserving. I think you were going on about this the other night.
I said I want to take care of the needy. I think it's inhuman. I think it's inhuman when Democrats lump the truly needy in with the seedy. I think that is an affront.
They're evil. It's an evil party. And Republicans treat them with kid gloves. You have to fight back. It's the punch in the mouth. Look at your the racist consequences of what you are doing in Detroit, in Chicago. They should have held their convention, the 2016 convention in Detroit. In 1961, Detroit was the richest per capita city in America. And then a Democrat became mayor. And they then controlled it for 50 years. And what they did was what Democrats do. They drove business out with their anti-business policies. Coleman Young was both a member of the Communist Party and the Democratic Party. He was mayor for 20 years. He was a racist. He drove the white middle class out, which is the tax base. 2/3 of the population fled. So now Detroit is 85% black. It's the poorest large city in America. In one generation, because there were no Republicans around to stop them, the Democrats reduced Detroit from a first world city to a third world city. Why aren't Republicans showcasing this?
Because at the end of the day, Dave, first off, can I tell you that's about as salient a condensing down of what's going on as I've heard in a long time. Secondly, while people are Republicans, they're individuals, and you don't want to get marked with the scarlet letter of being a racist. And that's planned.
No,
I'm sure we can talk about that after the break, because that's the next blow that comes after they do level a place like Detroit. If you say, boy, whatever they're practicing, to have 73 out of 100 families in the black community have one parent, and to do what they did to Detroit, boy, you talk about racist, man, the next thing you know, your life is a living hell. I got to do a live read, Davey. Thank Coach on that, and we'll revisit it on the other side of the break. Folks, where am I at here? Where am I at? Boy, that was powerful. It's just the truth. Anybody's going to say, no, Republicans did that to Detroit. You got to at least sit down. People say, where do we start this conversation? Holder always says we're cowards. Sit down and explain Detroit to us. No taxation without tax tiger representation. Do you have the IRS breathing down your back? You need a tiger on your side. Tax tiger. These guys are crazy good at what they do, generally outperforming the industry acceptance rate, and in many cases settling cases for less than $100. In business for 12 years, they have a stable full of tax specialists who've saved their clients over $30 million, providing financial freedom and, more importantly, peace of mind. Also, they've earned their stripes with a A+ Better Business Bureau rating and are founding member of the National Association of Tax Debt Resolution Companies. Let them step between you and the IRS. After a brief complimentary phone consultation, you will know exactly where you stand and how much it will cost. I've talked to the lady who runs it. She's a born again Christian, or maybe not born again. Maybe she was Christian but she's a fundamentalist Christian. I don't know what do you call it, Christian, when somebody? How funny that I'm asking a guy named Christian. I'll call her born again Christian, and she gives all her glory to God. So I know she's tithing. I said to her, "You tithing, baby?" She said, "Of course I'm tithing." Call Tax Tagger today for a free consultation. 1-800-IRS-9196. Remember, no taxation without Tax Tagger representation. That's 800-IRS-9196. TaxTagger.com. And back with David Horowitz. He's got a new book out, Take No Prisoners, The Battle Plan for Defeating the Left. Right after this, Dennis Miller Show. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Dennis Miller Show. We're talking to David Horowitz. He's the author of Take No Prisoners, The Battle Plan for Defeating the Left. I think David has a unique perspective because he's got a brilliant mind, and he was a child of the left for many, many years. Dave, we always hear here's where the brilliance on the left's part comes in. It would seem that they've learned many of their tactics, and you can tell me how many, from a man named Saul Alinsky, who wrote a book called Rules for Radicals. And I notice now that if you cite that as one of their influences, once again you are deemed a nut who gets hung up on Saul Alinsky. Tell me about Mr. Alinsky and what part he plays in the left.
You're hanging out with too many liberals, Dennis.
Yeah, they don't...
Yeah, you do get those reactions.
Yeah.
They're incapable of examining an argument and making an intellectual case. People on the left, all of them. It's all about name calling. They find a way to demonize you, and conservatives just have to develop thick skins because that's what's going to happen. Alinsky was somebody that I despised in the '60s, and all of us radicals did, because he had the same goals as we did. If you read his book, he thinks America is worth burning down. But he had a different strategy. He saw us, our slogans up against the wall, that kind of stuff, was counterproductive. You don't telegraph what you're going to do. I wish Paul Ryan would learn that. You don't telegraph the cuts you're going to make because that's just ammunition for the enemy. So he was a stealth radical, and what he advised was going into the Democratic Party, which he did with the help of Bobby Kennedy, infiltrating the institutions, learning to speak their language, but still carrying out the revolutionary agenda. In other words, lying. I mean, that's the main theme of the Alinsky book. And if you'll remember, J. Edgar Hoover once wrote a book about the communists, and he called them masters of deceit. And if you think, that describes our president, a world-class liar that we have we've never seen in national office before, lies about everything. And that's because his agendas, and Alinsky's agendas, were agendas that the American people will reject if they're put in front of them in reasonable terms. If you started out telling American people, look, we're going to take over all 300 million Americans, we're going to control your health care, and we're going to give you limited choices, and we're going to make expensive packages, and we're going to force young people who don't really need the health care into the program so they can subsidize old people. And we're going to try to get as many, we're going to get all the middle classes so we can take money out of their pockets. And then we're going to subsidize, the shiftless, seedy, as you call it, all across the country. I agree with you. The needy should be taken care of. But you can't have 47 million people on food stamps. There are not 47 million needy people in America. I mean, I happen to know personally, extended families and what. people who are perfectly capable of working, but are just living off the taxpayers. And it's so destructive to these people. Adam Carolla has got I don't know if it's in his new book, but I've seen him talk about how his mother was on welfare and she just never got ahead because there's no incentive. If you go out and get a job, you lose your benefits. So she just sat, and vegetated. Whereas Adam, who was born into a welfare family, started out as a carpenter and had this sense of humor, and now he's a hugely successful millionaire. That's the American story, not the mother's story. It's just a terrible, terrible situation. Alinsky was an evil man, and he is huge. He is the playbook for Obama, and Obama is doing it. Look what he's doing. All this unconstitutional stuff, all these executive orders. That's part of the Alinsky plan. You don't.
I should say
where you're going, but you just go there.
Yeah, I should say, interject at least, that he has used the executive order less than some presidents, but when he does use it, he uses it for whoppers, right?
Well, he uses it to change laws.
Yes. Big
that's
thing.
not what Bush or the others did.
I understand. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. We haven't even talked about foreign policy. Deliberately lost the war in Iraq, which is now controlled by Al-Qaeda. He illegally intervened in Libya, and now that's controlled by Al-Qaeda. He supported the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the fountainhead of all the terrorists in Egypt. And even when they were thrown out, because they were setting up a totalitarian state, he defended them.
Davey, I've got 30 seconds left. Would it be fair to say that he has been the best practitioner of it in the history of the country? And I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I can't believe what's happened to the country, but certainly he's been the best at it, right?
The best at lying.
The best practitioner of all the Alinsky,
Of the Alinsky, well, because he was a student of it for 20 years.
All right. Well, David has a book out with a plan. We could probably talk. Maybe Dave will come back in the next week and talk to us more because we've got a lot left. The book is Take No Prisoners, The Battle Plan for Defeating the Left. Nice to talk to you, Dave. Hope all is well with your family. Dennis Miller Show.
The Dennis Miller Show on Westwood One.